Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one getting all the insight. Now, today's video is gonna be a little bit of interesting topics, should I say? I'm sorry. There's just been a very awkward few years, obviously, by the struck of the COVID virus all around the world. So there has been a lot of changes and awkward policies, and looking into the domestic politics in Australia, how that affect and how the politician has chosen their pathway to implement their visa immigration policy, and how that actually affect the whole nation. I would like to take a little bit of my view of the past 3, perhaps 4 years of how I actually view the former government's immigration policy. So I'm gonna bring you 4 crazy stuff and how the former government had actually, with the F word, created a problem with the the system. And at the end of this video, also I would like to add some input on how the good side and the government had actually implemented and done over the past, I would say, about 2 years during the pandemic. But anyway, let's jump into it and have a look. So the first thing that they actually fucked up, let's have a look. It's actually this. This is the news back in 2019. Well, if you remember Scott Morrison, the former Prime Minister of Australia. Now, in 2019, he was also at an elections. So what he had pitched is to actually capping the migration intake down from 190,000 to 160,000. Now, I think that's a major mistake. Now, why would I say that? Now, obviously, during that era, I was in Australia, so the political talks and all the people around a nation is going. I think it's also influenced by Trump, how Trump had actually influenced from USA to Australia. So all these conservative politicians that came out and said, talking about, look, we got too many migrants, we got to reduce the migration numbers, and blah blah blah. So all these conservative parties and conservative politicians getting up all these public strengths, should I say. So while before Scott Morrison, if you remember, I'm not too sure if you know, now the Prime Minister before Scott Morrison was Malcolm Turnbull. Now, I think his view was quite right. So at that time, obviously, if you see my thumbnail, Peter Dutton, now the former Minister of Defence, was there to actually, cut off the support from the previous Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, and they have a shuffle within the party of the Liberal, and obviously came out Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison was the treasurer at that time, and he was also the former Minister for Immigration as well. And then once he became Prime Minister, I think that was, can't remember, it was back in 2018 or somehow. He appointed Peter Dutton to become the Minister of Immigration, and further onwards, Peter Dutton became Minister of Home Affairs and then Minister of Defence. Now that was the era making major changes. So we see the result of that is 2019. Scott Morrison announces a capping migration down from 190,000 to 160,000, not even increasing but decreasing. I think that is the major mistake that the former government had actually done. Well, you may have a different view, but because at the time pandemic would just hit a couple months later after the election, and obviously at the end of that year, 2019, there was the wildfire, the fire went out nationally, and Scott Morrison was at Hawaii having holiday. So again, that was all the issue that had brought down Scott Morrison all of the past 3 years. So that is the one first major thing. So the reason why I'm saying it's a major wrong is, well, if we think back, if this did not happen, that what we just saw, it did not happen, they kept 190,000 or perhaps increase it back then, perhaps during after the pandemic, everything will be much easier and the economy will be much stronger, I believe, because what we are experiencing at this point in time is there's a lack of skill, lack of workers. Everywhere around Australia is the lack of people to work, although the unemployment rate is very low, but that also shows that there's not enough people to get onto the job, so business cannot expand further. So that was the issue back then, and actually had that effect until today. So that's the first thing. I think that was a major mistake that the former government had fucked up. And now secondly, obviously they wanted to control more. So what had happened with the previous government of Australia has they cut out the traditional 457 and reinvented another new TSS. Although they are looking to, this is a they're basically going backwards last year to bring the permanent residency pathway for the short term. But look, if they haven't even done anything and changed 457 to TSS, that wouldn't be so much of an issue anyway. And TSS now, I have done so many videos complaining about the system where how an employer wanted to get a skilled worker in required to put 3 job ads. Yeah, you heard me right, 3 job advertisement. Now, if it's gonna be a small business in regional Australia, why would they do 3 job ads and it has to be paid? Why? It doesn't make any sense. And if they're already providing domestic training to their workers and things, why would they require to pay the Skilling Australian Fund, which is so costly that made a lot of employers just lost the appetite. So I think this is another mistake that the former government had done. Well, did they do it just for the sake of doing it? Well, they were trying to pick some people trying to do the wrong thing, but the whole change of this created major issues. Now, if we recall back during the pandemic, obviously government had introduced the priority skill occupation list, right? So these people with the occupation can actually be prioritized. Now, I still see people even in that occupation, they are not even being prioritized. Now, it's all because of all this procedural problem, the complexity. They make it too complex, too costly. It's not streamlined at all. So I think this is another thing that obviously early last year, before the election, obviously, there has been a parliamentary committee talk in regards to simplify the employment-sponsored visa. So let's see what happened. But obviously, they're talking about that now. They know there was a major error and major wrong has been done. So that's another thing that they had fucked up the system. And thirdly is 187 regional sponsor migration scheme. I think this visa was a very good design to attract skilled workers to go to regional Australia. Now, previously, you can see here it says the visa is closed. So the former government basically killed the entire visa. So what happened back then was the visa allows these skilled workers, if they want to go to regional areas, they'll be able to gain permanent residency straight away. So that brings more interest, brings more people willingness to actually go to regional Australia. But what happened was the former government thought, oh, well, these people got permanent residency, they probably won't stay in regional area, they'll come back to the major cities after they hold the permanent resident. So they cut the entire visa off. I mean, what? And they replace it with 494. And you know how hard 494 is. You need 3 years of work experience, skill assessment, and competent English. Well, look, if they had 3 years of work experiences, they wouldn't really go regional Australia. They would just do 186 direct entry straight away. So there's a lot of skill, an opportunity. I lost it in regional, and that's what we saw in this elections. A lot of employer is not really happy about how the former government has done. So even they have put so much publication and media attention to the government before election, we saw all that, but they didn't even listen, and that's the reason why they lost the election and failed the whole thing. So I think this is the and a lot of the previous Lodge 187, they I think there was a news back then, there were about 20,000 cases. They basically refused them all, put them into appealing procedures, and that cost a lot of money and caused a lot of family issues back then. So I think that's another major wrong. That was under Minister of Home Affairs Peter Dutton's era, which I think it just shouldn't be there at all. And lastly but not least, but we will connect to that one very soon, is the delay. Look at this delay, 51 months. Would you look for employment 4 years later while waiting 4 years? I mean, we just gone through a two crazy year. Let's go into the global processing, visa processing time web page. I've shown this in my previous video as well. There's so much complaint going on. Look at this one. Now let's just type in any visa there. 190, 10 month. I mean, all right, that's fine. 10 months compared to 51, that's fine. What about 491? Look at this. This is crazy. Now 90% of them waited for 22 months. I mean, look, these people, these skilled people, they're ready to go. They're ready to go and work in regional. And the government of Australia, well, former government, I'm pretty sure the newly elected government will actually get this fixed, because this just doesn't make any sense. No one would like to migrate to a place knowing that, or to be working in places knowing that you got to wait for 2 years almost. It's 22 months. What about 189 visa? Yeah, look at this. Point test independent. Even if they are so bright, you're so good, you gotta wait for 30 something, almost 40 months. I mean, this is current immigration process time. Obviously, you can say, oh, because of the pandemic. But look, there are so many other countries. Every countries around the world had actually gone through pandemic altogether, and how the other nations had react to it. Obviously, there are different ways to treat the virus, but there are some dealing it pretty well while they maintain the economy and employment and all these visas. But look at how the former government had done. They basically on the 20th of March 2020 asked all the migrants to go back home, and then suddenly they found that there's no more international students, there's no more migrants, temporary visa holders in Australia. Sydney and Melbourne still experiencing traffic jams, congestions. What about the housing prices still going up? So it's not even the cost of the migrants. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, well, I had just pointed out 4 major wrongs that the former government had done for the visa system. What if those systems were not done like that? What if the visa process is much quicker, much more efficient? That would help the whole pandemic, right? Obviously, they're caring about people coming in, bringing in the viruses, but more skill will actually help more. But look, it's already open. I thought they opened up the border back in November, December last year. Now, what about the processing time? Still very delayed. Okay, now what about if Scott Morrison did not cap the migration intake at 160,000? If they maintain 190, would it be better? I think so. They're totally right. What about the employment sponsor visa? If they had kept 457's flexibility there, I think there would be a lot more workers willing to come to Australia, and a lot more employer willing to get more skill overseas to help Australia up. Right? What about the regional visas? If that kept staying there, all the regional Australia will have those skilled workers there. So that was the four major, I think, the wrong things, the wrong policies that actually fucked up the entire thing. Now, obviously, if there was no pandemic, probably that will work it right. But anyway, I think a virus is just kill a lot of politicians' lives, should I say. But anyway, but they also done something right. That's what I'm trying to share at the second half of this video. So what have the former government actually done right? I don't want to just say the bad thing about them. There were things they did right, so I wanted to show that as well. Now, it's the subclass 491. I think this is a very successful and very good visa class that they have designed. So it actually attract a lot of skilled workers, international graduates to regional university, regional campuses, and regional employments. And once you get that 491, obviously the state government will nominate them. They'll continue to stay there and work. I think this is a very good success on the design of the immigration policy. Now, the only setback here is there's not enough quota. Right, there's so many people putting their EOI and still waiting. That comes back to the first point in my video, where they cap the migration intake at 160,000. So if that wasn't there like that, I mean 491 will actually work much better, much efficient. No more bloody 22-month wait, right? So if the waiting time is much less, that will be much better. So I think this, but overall, I think the design of subclass 491 is a very good visa category to actually attract bright skilled workers to regional Australia. And the other one is the Hong Kong stream, should I say. Now, obviously, if you're not a Hong Kong citizen here, you probably won't even notice about this, but obviously in 2019 a major event broke out about the national security law enforced in 2020. So a lot of activists and protesters has been wrongly treated in Hong Kong. So Australia as a nation has been very generous, offered this Hong Kong stream. So I think this is very good policy that allowing Hong Kong citizens to come to Australia, study 2 years and transfer into a 485 visa with a 5 years extension on the 485 visa, and for continuous living, staying in Australia, they were offered to become a permanent resident. If they're in regional, 3 years of living, and if they're in other places like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, no problem, 4 years, you'll be able to transfer yourself in with a subclass 189 to become permanent resident. I think this is a very good policies that we should really endorse, and I think the newly elected Labour government will continue to endorse this visa as well. Now, last but not the least, global talent. Now, global talent visa has been very popular, and this is their globalaustralia.gov.au. You may see this very fancy website. Now, it's a very successful program where Australia has successfully attracted a lot of global talents to come to Australia. I would say it's the only visa category nowadays in the English-speaking world, so that including New Zealand, Canada, USA, and UK, that a visa candidate could actually get permanent residency straight away. So, I mean, really straight away. All the other business investment type of visa is required to invest and wait and live for a couple years or months in order to transfer into permanent residency. Now, global talent visa gets you into permanent residency straight away, even if you're overseas. Okay, and you get all the benefits, and they have a lot of supporting program for these talent to come to Australia, and gave them support further onward in the industry, providing all kind of things. And obviously, if you get permanent resident, you got all the benefits for your kids' educations and things. So anyway, that is for the video today. Obviously, the topic of this video is quite I just want to do a review of what had happened in the past 3 to 4 years, and I noticed that obviously we got a new government. The former government had actually done a lot of things not quite right. I'll say it actually fucked it up, because the virus actually show us everything that has actually been done wrong. However, a general election took place on 21st of May 2022. It actually shows that the Australian the Australian people and the public is not dumb. Okay, Australians are smart. They know what happened. They know what had reflected to them. Despite the former government kept on saying they have done a very, very good numbers on economy, finance, unemployment rate, and all whatever they were trying to say. But look, the general public does not buy that, because they feel, see, smell, and touch everything every day, and they know things is not right. Anyway, should you have more question, query, more than welcome to leave a comment right down below. I'll see you next video. Goodbye.